Welcome to the Great Divorce Podcast, hosted by divorce financial analyst and retirement planning counselor Andrew Hatherley. Join Andrew and guest experts as they help late-life divorcees build the financial and mental foundation for a meaningful future. There is life after divorce. Now, on to the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great Divorce Podcast. So, you're recently divorced. The legal work is done, and you've put together a financial plan, hopefully, with your divorce financial planner. It's a new season in your life, and let's pick spring, because your thoughts are turning to romance. Whether you're looking to date and take it slow, or maybe even find that special someone. How do you approach dating after divorce in your 50s, 60s, or 70s? Particularly if you've been married for a long time and are, shall we say, out of practice. Our guest today is an expert on subjects romantic. Bela Ghandi is a nationally acclaimed dating and relationship expert and the founder of the Smart Dating Academy. She's been featured on Good Morning America and The Today Show, and Steve Harvey has even christened Bela the fairy godmother of dating. I always get a chuckle out of that. Bela, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Oh, well, the fairy godmother of dating. I can imagine Steve Harvey saying that.
He's so funny.
You know, I was reading your bio, and you've had a really curious path to reach such prominence in the matchmaking world. Perhaps we could start with your sharing how you came to work in this field as a professional dating and love coach.
You're right, Andrew. It's a fun, quirky path to get there. So I discovered I don't know if it's a knack or a gift for matchmaking and helping people with relationships. When I was in college, I was getting 2 majors in finance, so in banking and investments, and German language. So crazy. So I started fixing people up as early as that, like, oh, you know what? I said to my roommate, Audrey, I said, there's this guy, Simon, and I think if you go out on one date with him, you're going to get married. She's like, that's crazy. Who says that? They've now been married for 27 years. They live in the suburbs of Chicago. So I started to do that person after person. And right out of school, that was just my knack. It was just what I did for fun. But I worked in mergers and acquisitions for a while. Then I joined my family's chemicals business, which we grew to a global company. And then we sold to a Dutch multinational, AkzoNobel. And then I ran the acquisition for 5 years until 2006. So when you sell a company, you come out with the 5-year non-compete. So I thought, well, I love this dating thing so much. Can I actually get the process out of my head, get it down? I'm process driven. I'm finance, ran a manufacturing company. So put this process together, started teaching it to people. In 2009, that was the birth of Smart Dating Academy, where I think nobody's teaching people how to actually pick partners that are good for them, right? So our process has 4 phases: preparing to date. That's what we do when people onboard with us. Then you get out there in the arena and you're dating, and then you get to exclusivity, right? And then happily ever after. So we coach people in the weeds. We're in their dating apps, helping them message, looking for red flags, for green flags, holding their hand through the process. That's what our company does. And that's how we've had 0 divorces in 15 years.
Hang on a sec. 0 divorces in 15 years?
0 divorces in 15 years of people that have followed our process.
So I'm imagining you say you're deep in the weeds. I mean,
in the weeds.
Preparation, all these steps are so important. Preparation, the actual how you're doing the dating, but you're in there. Tell me, I mean, if I understand correctly, you're in there on the exclusivity phase and the happily ever after phase as well. I mean, how does that work?
All over. Our clients typically engage us for a year to begin with, right? So we get them prepared to date. Who is a good partner for them? We have a whole series of things that we put them through so they know our trademark is high GPQ, high and good partner qualities. And that's a very different way of doing this exercise to get rid of the old checklist that hasn't been serving you. So how do you actually know what's going to make you happy based on who you are now? Then do you understand what the red flags are going to be, whether you're reading somebody's profile or you're 4 months post exclusivity? It's like, what are things that should get somebody like maybe tossed out of the equation, right? So that's the second thing. And then how do you pace dating and relationships? We live in a society where there's a 3 date rule. I'm like, there's no 3 date rule. 3 dates, you spend 2 hours per date. That's 6 hours. It's not even Monday at work. And you're thinking of locking it down. So we're here to put some ration, some process, some pacing to this. And that's how, with all of these steps, and then following people through it is how, people have, been saved from divorce.
I had to chuckle. The 3 date rule, is that the same thing for what you're talking about? Is the same thing that men consider the 3 date rule?
I don't know who came up with that rule, but it's bunk. Whatever you think the 3 date rule is, none of that. Nothing happens in 3 dates except, yeah, let's go on a fourth date.
Right, right. I think you raised so many subjects for discussion there. I think the most important thing that really jumped out at me was in the preparation phase. Our audience for the Great Divorce Podcast are typically people who've getting divorced later in life in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And they may have been in a relationship for 10, 15, 20 years or even longer. And I think one of the keys is to how to, you're coming out of this relationship, how do you re-enter the dating world and not avoid making mistakes? I mean, I suppose you have dating advice that applies to everybody, but what about this older cohort of people who are kind of the really growth area in divorce? How should they approach dating after divorce, and how would it be particularly different or specific to people getting divorced in their 20s or 30s?
No, I think that dating over 50 is the best time to date. You know better who you are. You've been around the block a few times. You've probably been to the school of hard knocks, especially if you've been through one or multiple divorces, right? And hopefully you have a better idea of what a good partnership looks like to you. Other advantages are you're not necessarily looking to get married and have children with somebody. For most of us, that ship has sailed by then. So maybe if you've never had kids, you may date a partner that has kids and get grandkids. So there's so many amazing things I think that come by dating in the age post 50. There's a lot of advantages.
One would hope that age brings some wisdom and perspective.
Oh,
Not always the case, though. And sometimes people have a tendency to fall into old habits. And how would you, in the preparation phase where you're working with people, how would you deal with somebody who's really a relationship person and wants to get married? Some people coming out of divorce, I'm never going to do that again. And some people, I'm really a relationship person and I want to. Do you encourage them to understand those feelings or act on them? How does that work?
yeah. Our process, our first meeting, Andrew, with our clients is 3 hours. And that's
Oh,
after
wow.
they've filled out a dossier of paperwork. So we are diving in. We know about family of origin stuff because that can have a profound impact on how we select partners. We know all about your previous relationships. What attracted you to this person? What worked? What didn't work? What was their responsibility? What was yours? And we have people looking for patterns. So we know a whole lot about each person even before we have this 3 hour onboarding meeting with them. So, yeah, we're going in deep because that's the only way you can avoid doing the same thing again.
Right, right. So hopefully there's an element of understanding ourselves, increased understanding of ourselves. Some of that comes with age, but I've even found I was divorced at 52, and some of the tools that really helped me in life and in dating after divorce were tools that helped me better understand myself, my strengths, and perhaps not so strengths and proclivities. And really, it was all about, I think if it came down to anything, it came down to being honest with ourselves. And isn't that the key word in relationships and certainly in dating when we're entering that world?
Yeah, I think self-awareness is crucial and self-work is crucial. And then, because you can't, people talk about good communication. You can't be an effective communicator if you're not aware of your feelings, if you're
Yeah.
not aware of where you've been, right? And so I'm a huge believer in that introspective work, right? And that's something that we really help every one of our clients to do. And it's such an asset long term to really dig in and say, wow, how has maybe family of origin stuff or early relationships, do I continuously accept people that aren't good for me? Am I
Mhm.
moving too fast and missing red flags and locking things down too quickly, and narrowing my options? And then, my relationships always feel like I'm pushing a round peg through a square hole. Like, what is that? Because the problem, or I would say the opportunity for people is understand that human nature is such that we tend to do what's comfortable
Mm. The
versus,
path of least resistance.
and comfort can kind of lead us back to bad dating patterns again.
Right.
So what we do is we'll teach you the system, but then we're like your dating ninjas on your shoulders, making sure that you're staying out of harm's way. I'm in your inboxes looking at things. We've got dating scorecards and graphs and all sorts of tools for people to use to make sure that the people that they're dating are actually good and healthy for them and taking it slow.
You're really into the process here. I mean, it sounds like you're debriefing after your clients
We're in
date.
the gizzards of our clients' dating lives. Like
I'm sorry, what was that you said?
we're in the gizzards of their dating lives. Like there's really, one of the first things we put on one of our questionnaires is there is no such thing as TMI with us. Too much information. The more we know, the more we can help you.
Hmm. So,
Yes, we're logging into everybody's apps. I've got a CRM that has 100 people's login informations to different apps, right? Their dating scorecard. So we've got a system and it works. But yeah, and it only works because we're so high touch.
well, in working with people like this, you've obviously recognized patterns and tendencies and behavior and developed an expertise in working with these people to help them recognize whether they might be on a good path or a not so good path.
Oh, absolutely. Like we're very like, that's good for you. That's not good for you. Or you've been continuously choosing people that are emotionally avoidant because this is how you grew up, right? And this is triggering your anxiety. So when you feel really excited about a date, it's going to make me nervous because excitement and fear are very closely related emotions. So
Mm.
we tell our clients if you come back and say, oh, I had butterflies after that date, I'm so excited. Butterflies are bad, people. You don't want butterflies in the dating process. After the first date, if your stomach is flipping over, it is your body saying, danger, Will Robinson, get abort function, get out of here. That's anxiety. It's not excitement.
That's fascinating, and I recognize that the truth in that, but it's like counterintuitive, isn't it? You think that's a good thing when all the chemicals are flowing, and but ultimately, it's like a sugar high.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right. At least sugar feels good, maybe for the first 30 minutes. And then you're like, whoa, why did I do that? Right. And butterflies, I think, it feels like excitement, but what it is, it's actually activation of your nervous system. It's anxiety. And so fear and anxiety or fear and excitement are so closely related. And when we've grown up, maybe at home with one or two parents that, aren't exactly functional. Maybe they fight a lot and you grew up in that state of chaos. Or you didn't know when somebody was coming home. There was a lot of chaos, tumult. You grow up in the state of anxiety, so that becomes your norm. And you don't even realize it. So people that are good for you can actually feel kind of boring because they're not triggering that anxiety response. So there's a lot of deep work that we do with our clients to make sure that that excitement isn't actually anxiety and then getting them out of harm's way.
So we talk about the 3 date rule, as you mentioned earlier. That ties in with this kind of rush feeling. And if you don't
Yeah,
have that rush in the first 3 dates, then it's the false idea that it's not going to develop into a good relationship. You're encouraging people to take their time and get to know a person and let the relationship develop. And ultimately, those are the type of relationships that will be more sustainable over the long term.
that's right. And you know what one word I hear from my clients when I know this relationship is going to stand the test of time?
What's that?
It's easy.
Hmm.
Easy doesn't mean there's no conflict. Easy doesn't mean that everything's, coming up roses every minute of the day, but it means overall it's easy. When we have a disagreement, we can resolve it easily. Nobody speeds out of the driveway for 5 days and we don't know when they're coming back. Nobody throws a microwave across the room in a fit of rage, right? We don't shut down and ghost. That's not easy. Relationships don't have to be like that. So many people don't know that because they've grown up with dysfunction. Their relationships have been dysfunctional. It's like, wait, can that exist? My clients that come out of divorce are like, when they meet someone awesome and we're watching this relationship date by date, it's like, but when's the other shoe going to drop? I'm like,
Right.
it's not because this is how it should have been all along. It's like you feel like you can exhale. You feel a sense of safety and ease. They're like, I don't know what this feels like because you've never felt it. But I'm here to tell you, for those of you that are listening, there's great hope out there for you to have a relationship like this. It does exist. You're just going to have to change up maybe some things that you're doing.
So let's get into the nuts and bolts of getting out there in the world. So you've had discussions with your clients about understanding where they're coming from and what their interests are and their history. When they get back into the dating world, how do you advise them to enter the some of the logistics? Meeting in person, meeting online, any tips for first dates? How does the process, how do you what do you recommend in terms of the process of dating?
Keep it slow. People need to earn you and they need to earn your story. So, number one, message back and forth if you're on an app. And the biggest mistake people make is they rush out straight to meet somebody. Do a video date in between.
You
You
mean
will save
start with a video date?
absolutely. And anybody that says they don't want to do video, it's a bit of a red flag to me. So, doing video just makes you say, oh, okay, wow, Andrew looks just like his photos. That's great. He actually
Yeah.
looks a little better than his photos. And our conversation was easy and there were no red flags. Yeah, I'm excited to go out and grab a glass of wine with him. Now, if somebody's photos weren't current or I always say crazy can't hide for more than 15 minutes if you're looking for it. If someone's bananas, you're going to see it during the video call, and then you can just get off the video and you haven't invested 3 hours and getting zhuzhed up and getting to a place and having to suffer through that for 2 hours. Here, you can just hit end call and you're done.
That's such good advice, and I wish that video services like Zoom were around. 10 years ago. They might have. I think Skype was, but not many people were using it.
No,
But
not for
no, that's terrific advice because we've all been in that situation. I'm sure men and women where we meet the person in person. They, there's 10, 15 years removed from their photo on or 20, 30 pounds or whatever. They just don't look like the person in their photos.
Absolutely. And public service announcement for all, get a new set of photos.
Hmm.
People want to date the person in the picture. Don't take the phone. Nobody has great photos of themselves, right? We all tend to take pictures with other people, and those are the photos that we have in our phones. You are the product. If you're in online dating, you're the product in cyberspace. You don't need your kids. You don't need your friends. You don't need to scratch people's faces out. Invest in yourself like you would if you were selling your house. Would you just pull up a bunch of janky photos from your cell phone, like, well, here's my kitchen with dirty dishes in the sink, but that's how it normally looks? No, you would not do that. You would clean it up. You would have everything put away. You'd have a photographer come in. You are more important than selling your house. And yet we don't take this rational perspective to dating.
Are people still posting photos with the other people scratched out?
Yes, they are because they don't know better. They're posting bathroom selfies,
Oh no, the bathroom still that'll never go away.
gym selfies, car selfies. Get a person to take a photo of you. Another person will always take a picture at a better angle than you can with the selfie, right?
What about the fish selfie?
No fish, please. No dead animals in photos. No sunglasses. I want to see your eyes. Look right at the camera and smile. Look trustworthy. Look approachable. Look fun.
So these are no, this is great advice. And but this is assuming an online service. Is this by far the most common way of meeting people in this day and age?
At any age, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, yes. Online dating is the world's largest cocktail party for singles, and that is a party that you want to be part of. Is it easy? No. Do you feel like you're on human eBay when you're on a dating app? Absolutely. It's like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming, right? And that's where when we launch our clients, we're like, don't even look in your inbox. I'm going to get in there with you. I'm going to show you how to do this. We're going to get rid of a lot of riffraff from here, and we're going to help you stay focused. Because if not, it feels incredibly overwhelming and people just shut it down.
Wow, that's I mean, I'm continually amazed by the hands-on interaction here with your clients. You're in the inbox looking at prospective candidates with them and maybe offering some tips as to why this person may or may not be a good fit.
We are. We are. We're right in it. And I think it's this kind of advice and support that I wish every person on earth could have because it makes a huge difference. We don't have to rely on our well-intentioned friends or family that have no idea what it's like to date
Right.
after divorce.
Right.
They don't know. And your dating life becomes the subject of their brunch stories. They want to be entertained, right? So we are a safe, professional third party vessel. We tell our clients, stop talking to other people about your dating life. You don't need to be everybody's stand-up entertainment. We're going to give you the right advice.
That's funny. That's funny because my wife loves to tell the story about the advice her friends gave her on our first date.
Oh, what
And
was that?
well, they told her, do not spend more than an hour with him, and an hour and out. Which I don't know. You may think is good advice. I don't know. I'm curious to get your feedback on this, but I'd been at this point, I had been dating probably about 5, 6 years and didn't do the video, should have, but I had brought it down to the level of coffee dates, nice outdoor coffee shop, sticky bun, and out in 15, 20 minutes if it was obviously not going to work. This is advice for the men out there, no $200 dinners on the first date.
No, please
No,
don't.
it's like
Nobody
this
wants
is, it's like financial advisors giving seminars. I think there are, because I've been told this, there are some women who will date just for the dinners. And so,
Oh, get
you
rid
know,
of those
yeah,
fast.
out. Anyway, back to the story of what her friends said. Do not spend more than an hour with him. Well, we ended up spending considerably more than an hour. We ended up going shopping, and we bought charcuterie, and had ended up having like a late charcuterie dinner, and that was it. But she wasn't responding to her friends' texts, and they were all freaking out, saying, "You've never done that before. What are you doing?" So I'm curious whether this hour rule is something that you would have recommended to my wife.
For yes, 99% of the time, we always say 2 hours. 2 hours is plenty of time. And research shows that when we spend longer than that, people can start to evaluate us in a more negative light. So, and I have my clients, remember, this is what we do. So I want them going out with multiple people. So I need
Right.
their energy to also be preserved.
Right.
That's why we do video, so we don't waste time on disappointing dates. We keep first dates short and sweet. Go for a walk, grab coffee. I love that you were doing that, right? And sometimes walking with the coffee is super fun too, because especially if you're active and youthful, you want to make sure this person can keep up with you. So
Yes.
walk and right. And so all these little things, and that makes dates more interesting also than just sitting there eating dinner. But typically I do favor shorter dates. And again, from my client's vantage point, that come out of trauma and they want to speed things up. It's too much too soon, too fast and furious. We're very much, I play by the rule versus the exception. So it's like, let's keep boundaries around this. And if this person is the right person for you, they're going to be okay with an hour or 2 hours and they'll call you back for another date.
It's funny you should mention boundaries because I just published my most recent podcast with a lady who's a specialist on the subject of boundaries, and boundaries are so liberating when you're able to set uh, your rules for living and what will enter your life and what won't enter your life. And I found what worked for me in the dating world was I had my four deal breakers. Well, not four. There were not deal breakers. I had the four things I was looking for. The deal breakers were addictions. I didn't want to deal with anybody who was addicted to drugs, booze, sex, gambling, because I live in Las Vegas. So there were no addictions. And of course, it takes a while to kind of suss some of these things out. But
Yeah.
the four things that I was looking for in a candidate were kindness, intelligence, a good sense of humor, and an independent nature. As I wanted to be with somebody who had their own mind and thoughts and had a life outside of me. So I'm wondering, was I doing? I think it worked out, but would you?
Clearly, it worked out. You're a happily married guy.
But I'm curious if what I did would have followed your rules. So, do you encourage people to have deal breakers and then key items that they're looking for?
Oh, we have lists, Andrew. If I could show you, well, we have a whole system. We have pages of red flags by phases of dating. We have graphs for what healthy trajectories look like. We have lists of green flags that we identify with each individual client, like what their have to haves
Oh my
are.
goodness.
Tell them what the deal breakers are, 100%, you know? And so it's interesting. So I think you did a great job. And
Well,
it's
I think so. I think so. But I can imagine, I would love to be a fly on the wall when you and your client are going over, let's say 10 guys is it swiping right or swiping left? I can't remember which is the good one. But
right.
they've swiped right. They've shown indications of interest to introduce some financial terms in here. Um, and I can just imagine a lady saying, "Oh, he looks so nice," and you say, "Whoa, hold your horses! Can't you see this, that, and the other thing, and what we talked
Yeah.
about?" And
100%. We literally, it's lists of red flags. Like, wait a second, tell me this again. The majority of my job is spent listening for what is between the lines
yeah,
and giving people advice. They're like, oh my gosh, that's great. I'm like, you know what? That's a yellow flag. I don't love this. I want you to ask these three questions. And so they're like, oh, Thank God I have someone that's advising me around this, right? And we come from a place of love. We want things to work out, but we're here to wrap our clients in bubble wrap to not get dinged up through the process. So we're very protective.
Well, it seems to be working. You've got a very good track record.
We do, we do. So it's really, I'm profoundly grateful that people have entrusted us with this most vulnerable pie piece of their life.
So, am I correct in assuming that most of your clients are female?
We have both. We have men and women. We love coaching men as well. So it's great. Women tend to be proactive. They tend to share resources like, oh my gosh, I'm listening to this great podcast. You should hire my dating coach, right? And men, interestingly, often come into our practice because this is funny. They'll go on dates with our female clients and they're like, you should listen to this podcast called the Smart Dating Academy podcast. And so we'll get guys and they're like, oh my God, I drove from Michigan to LA and I binged 130 of your episodes. I want to work with you. So it's so funny how they hear about us. Like they're like, I never thought to look for a dating podcast.
So, you're this is where the matchmaking comes in because you've got male clients and female clients. I'm thinking just looking out into the world, but you've got this database of people you're working with. You can introduce people in your who are clients on both sides, right?
If we feel like it would be a good match, we have done it. It's fun. And then I always tell people, look, if you're getting a client that's coming from us, that's a really good client. That's a really good
Yes, they've been vetted.
somebody who cares about their dating life enough to have assistance around this process and to be the best version of themselves, kind of the best kind of people.
Okay, so that brings up the question, how do you vet people? Because I'm sure you get some crazy bananas and some not so nice guys. Um, I assume that you do vet people and sometimes refuse taking on clients?
We have a lot of places we refer clients to.
I think you might be better served over here.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lists of therapists, so
Therapist, yes, yes.
do different things. Yeah, we do a lot of referrals. We're always on a wait list for our coaching, so which is good because we're a small team that does it. But yeah, I am looking for people that are positive, they're fun, they're coachable, they want help around this. They know they've invested in themselves in other ways, and they believe that investing in themselves makes them the best version of themselves, right? I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have business coaches and mentors and people helping me to level up. So I couldn't believe more in having a really solid village around you.
Well, exactly. By being the best versions of ourselves and doing that internal work, we're actually putting a better product out there into the world. And so it works for everybody.
And look at the great things you help your clients to do and achieve, right? And imagine, right? They hire people like you to help make sure that they can live the life that they want to live.
I always say I think the best gift or the best thing anyone can do for another person is to inspire them to be a better version of themselves because not only are they going to feel that boost in self-esteem and satisfaction and growth, but they're also going to be better contributing members of the public as well.
Right. 100%.
This has been a great conversation, Bella. We could continue for hours on this, but I want to respect your time. It's a half-hour podcast. Is there anything that I haven't covered that you'd like to convey to our audience?
No, I think if you're sitting there and you're listening to this, wherever you are, getting divorced, you are divorced, just know that I want you to have the mantra, what I call being a psychotic optimist. I want you to take all the negativity out of your brain and I want you to replace it with one sentence. Write it on a post-it, write it with red lipstick on your mirror. Love will come to me. It's a when, not an if. There's so much hope out there. I've had people, no joke, that have been divorced 4 times that get remarried a 5th time, and this time it's for keepers. No matter where you are, you deserve love. You're worthy of love, and you can find someone that's going to love you exactly as you are.
Well, that's a tremendous sentiment, and I think there's so much truth in that. Bela, if our listeners are interested in availing themselves of your services, how do they find you?
You can go to smartdatingacademy.com and we'll send you a little note about how our programs work. And if they sound of interest, I do a one-on-one consultation with everybody to make sure that we're a good mutual fit. And if you just want to learn more, go listen to my podcast, the Smart Dating Academy podcast, and follow us on Instagram. We post a whole lot of interesting, relevant, helpful data on a daily basis. It's at Smart Dating Academy on Instagram.
Terrific. And I'll put those links in the show notes for the podcast. Bela, thank you very much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Grey Divorce Podcast. To learn more or get in contact with your host, you can visit Andrew's website at transcendretirement.net. Also, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Information provided is educational only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Each situation is unique and should be discussed with your tax or legal advisor prior to implementation. Andrew Hatherley is not an attorney and does not provide legal advice. Information provided is financial in nature. Advisory services offered through Hatherley Capital Management, LLC. Divorce financial analysis services offered through Wiser Divorce Solutions, an affiliated company.